Every prison has to rule books. Break the first one and you go to solitary. Break the second one and you do not walk out. Most people think prison is simple. You go in, you do your time, you come out. That is what it looks like from the outside. From the inside, it looks completely different. Former inmates from Pelican Bay to ADX Florence, the most dangerous maximum security prisons on American soil, they all say the exact same thing when you ask them what the first lesson was. It was not a rule from a guard. It was not something written in any handbook. It was something they learned in the first 72 hours. Not the first month, not the first year. The first 72 hours, because in maximum security, from the moment you walk through that gate, every single person in that facility is watching you. Your walk, your eyes, whether you hesitate before sitting down, whether you look over your shoulder, whether you look scared. And the moment you show weakness, the clock starts ticking. These are the rules nobody tells you. The ones written in blood on walls that no camera has ever captured, and by the end of this video, you will understand something about human nature and survival that most people spend their entire lives never having to learn. Rule 1, never ask what someone is in for. Rule number 1. And this is the one that gets more new inmates into serious trouble in their first week than any other mistake they make. Never ask a man what he did, never, not casually. Not out of genuine curiosity, not to make conversation. Not to break the silence at a table or pass the time in a yard, never. The question seems harmless from the outside. In a normal social situation, learning about someone's background is how relationships form. It is how people connect. It is considered polite interest in another person's story. In maximum security, that question is not polite. It is a threat. Here is why. The man sitting next to you might be inside for something that, if it becomes known on the yard, makes him a target for everyone around him, a child predator, a federal informant who testified against gang members and got relocated, a cop killer whose identity is known to affiliates of the officer he killed, a serial offender whose crimes make him untouchable to every group in that facility. When you ask him what he did, you force him to make a choice. He can lie, which creates a problem if the lie is discovered. He can tell the truth, which creates a problem immediately. Or he can refuse to answer, which creates a confrontation right there at that table. In every one of those scenarios, you are the person who created the problem. And in maximum security, people who create problems get dealt with. Not eventually, quickly. The men who have been inside for years, the ones who understand how the environment actually works, they never ask. They observe, they watch who sits with a man and who avoids him. They notice which groups acknowledge him and which ones look through him. They pay attention to how the guards treat him because guards communicate more information through their behavior than they realize. The walls talk, the yard talks, the cafeteria talks. Everything you need to know about the man sitting across from you will reach you eventually without you ever having to put him in a position that makes you his problem. Former inmates from Pelican Bay State Prison, one of the most violent facilities in the American system, consistently describe this rule as the most sacred in the entire unwritten code. Not because it protects you from something abstract, because it protects you from something immediate and specific and unpredictable. That can happen the moment you force the wrong man to answer a question he was not prepared to answer. Rule 2. Your first fight defines you forever. Rule number 2. And this is the one that sounds the most counterintuitive to anyone who has not spent time inside. If someone hits you, you hit back every single time without exception, regardless of the size of the person who hit you, regardless of whether you think you can win. Regardless of whether fighting back means going to solitary for 10 days or losing privileges you have been working toward for months, you fight back every single time. Here is what most people on the outside do not understand about why this rule exists. In the outside world, choosing not to fight back can be a sign of maturity, of self-control, of the ability to think beyond the immediate moment. In maximum security, choosing not to fight back is a signal, and that signal travels through the facility faster than any piece of information you have ever seen move on social media. Within 24 hours, every person in that yard knows. Within 48 hours, the decision has been made about what category you belong to. And in maximum security, there are only two categories: prey or problem. If you fight back, even if you lose completely, even if you end up on the floor and the other person walks away without a scratch, you are a problem. You are someone who makes hitting you cost something. And in an environment where everyone is calculating risk before every action, being the person who costs something to hit is the most important status you can establish in the first week. If you do not fight back, you are prey, and prey does not last. The former inmates who talk about this rule do not talk about it as something violent or aggressive or morally questionable. They talk about it as simple math. A man who served 11 years in Attica described his first week. A man twice his size took his food tray. He picked the tray back up and broke the man's nose with it. He spent 10 days in solitary confinement. He came back to the yard, and for the next 11 years, through every gang conflict, every territorial dispute, every moment of tension that defined life inside that facility, not one person ever physically challenged him again. One fight, one moment of immediate and costly response. 11 years of being left alone. That is not violence for the sake of violence. That is the only language that maximum security speaks fluently. Rule 3, never touch another man's food. Rule number 3. And if you heard this rule in our recent shorts video, you got the short version. Now you are going to understand why this rule exists at the depth that it does. Because on the surface it seems like a small thing, food, a tray. Something you could replace in a cafeteria line in 30 seconds. But in maximum security, food is not just food. Food is the one thing inside those walls that a man controls completely. Every other aspect of a prisoner's life, when he sleeps, when he wakes up, when he showers, when he exercises, when he can make a phone call, is controlled by the institution. The institution decides everything, except what happens on your tray when it is placed in front of you. That tray, those contents, that specific allocation of food at that specific meal, belongs to the man who received it. Completely and without negotiation, reaching past his tray is not an accident that can be explained away. It is a direct statement about his status. It says his space means nothing, his boundaries mean nothing. His presence in that facility means nothing, and in a place where a man's entire sense of dignity and self is compressed down to the smallest possible surface area, any violation of that surface area is not small, it is everything. The Bureau of Justice Statistics has documented consistently across multiple decades of prison violence reporting that cafeteria incidents, events that begin in the dining hall during meal times, represent one of the top 3 causes of serious violence, including stabbings in American correctional facilities. Not drug disputes, not gang conflicts, cafeteria incidents over food trays. Because in that environment, the food tray is not really about food. It is about whether your presence in this facility is respected or it is not. Keep your hands on your own tray. Keep your eyes down while you eat. Do not comment on what anyone else has or does not have. Do not offer to share unless you have a relationship with someone that was established long before that cafeteria table. And do not accept food from someone you do not know, because the next rule explains exactly why that is a category of problem all by itself. Rule 4, debt will get you killed. Rule number 4. And this is the rule that catches more people off guard than any other item on this list, because it disguises itself as generosity. Someone offers you something in your first week: cigarettes, extra food, a magazine, a favor. Protection from a situation that was developing in a way you did not fully understand. You take it. You are grateful. You think it was a gift offered by someone who was being kind in an environment that is not known for kindness, and you file it away as a positive interaction and move on with your day. 3 weeks later, they come to collect, and what they want in return for that cigarette, that extra food, that small favor, is something that is worth far more than what they gave you. Maybe money transferred through a family member on the outside. Maybe a task that gets carried out on someone they want dealt with. Maybe a message delivered to someone in a part of the facility you should not be in, carrying information you do not want to know about and definitely do not want to be caught carrying. And if you refuse, if you explain that you thought it was a gift and that you do not have what they are asking for, and that this is a misunderstanding, the debt does not disappear. It transfers, it grows, and now it is not just you that it attaches to. It is everyone associated with you, your cellmate, the people you eat with. Anyone who could be used as leverage to apply pressure on you until the debt is paid. A former inmate who spent years in a DX Florence, the federal supermax facility in Colorado that houses the most dangerous prisoners in the American system, described prison debt this way. It is like a noose. The moment they hand you something, they have it around your neck. And every day you do not pay, they pull it tighter. The rule is simple: accept nothing from strangers inside. Not a cigarette, not a favor, not a piece of advice that comes with an expectation attached to it. Nothing. The cost of that cigarette is never the cost of that cigarette. Rule 5, the Code of Silence, rule number 5. And you have heard the saying, but you have not understood it until now. In maximum security prisons, particularly those housing organized crime members, cartel affiliates, gang leadership, and serious violent offenders, the Code of Silence is not a preference. It is not a cultural tradition that some people follow and others ignore. It is law. It is the most consistently and most seriously enforced law inside those walls. More consistently enforced than anything the institution itself mandates. More seriously enforced than anything a judge ever wrote into a sentence. In 2014 at Corcoran State Prison in California, an inmate was found dead for hours after prison officials confirmed that he had spoken to investigators about a gang-related incident. For hours, the information about his cooperation moved through the facility faster than a prison transfer to have moved him to safety. The people who needed to know found out, and the response happened before any institutional protection could be organized. Former inmates who have been inside serious facilities describe moments that test this rule in ways that most people watching this video cannot fully imagine. Witnessing a murder 3 feet away, watching a man get stabbed repeatedly in a corridor that a guard will reach in under 2 minutes. Being present for events that law enforcement agencies spend years trying to build cases around. Events where the testimony of a single eyewitness would change the outcome of a prosecution completely. And when the guards arrive and the investigators come and the questions begin, the answer from every person who was present is identical. I did not see anything, not because they are protecting someone they respect, not because they agree with what happened, but because their next breath, and the breath after that, and every breath for the remainder of their time in that facility, depends on that answer staying consistent. The Code of Silence is not about loyalty to criminals. It is about survival math, and in maximum security, the math is simple. Talk and live for a day. Stay quiet and live for the rest of your sentence. The rule nobody talks about, and now the rule that none of the others prepare you for. The one that no former inmate writes about in any memoir. The one that no documentary has ever fully captured. Because it is not a rule about behavior, it is a rule about something much harder to protect. The moment you walk into maximum security, every force in that environment begins working to assign you an identity. The gangs want you to be a member. The institution wants you to be a number. The hierarchy wants you to be a rank. The other inmates want to place you into a category that tells them how to treat you and what you are worth to them and what risks and benefits you represent in the calculation they are running constantly just to survive their own time inside. You will be pressured to join, to affiliate, to pick a side in conflicts that have been running since before you arrived and will continue long after you leave. You will be offered protection that comes with requirements, friendship that comes with obligations. Belonging that comes with a price that is never stated clearly until after you have already paid the first installment. And the ones who walk out of maximum security with their minds intact, with their sense of who they are preserved through years in an environment specifically designed to strip that away, are the ones who held onto one thing through all of it. They knew who they were before they walked in. And they refused to become someone else while they were inside. That sounds simple. Inside a maximum security prison, after months and years of pressure from every direction, it is the hardest thing a human being can do. Your identity is the only thing in that place that belongs entirely to you. It is the only thing they cannot officially take. Guard it like your life depends on it. Because inside those walls, it genuinely does. 6 rules, none of them in any handbook. None of them taught by any guard or counselor or institutional program. All of them learned the way everything real is learned inside maximum security. Through experience, through watching what happens to people who did not know them. Through surviving the first 72 hours and the first week, the first month in a place that tests every assumption you ever had about human nature and how far people will go when the normal rules of the outside world do not apply. These rules are not from a textbook, they are from people who live this. People who made mistakes that cost them, people who figured out the code and walked out the other side. Maximum security prison is a world that runs on rules older than any law. And in that world, knowing the code is not an advantage. It is the difference between walking out and not walking out. Subscribe to Dark Ranks, because next time we go inside an organization where these rules are just the beginning. Where the code goes deeper than any prison wall. And where the price of breaking it makes solitary confinement look like a vacation.